Welcome. This is my best photos of 2024 video. 2024 was a great year for photography, and I got a lot of good photos, so let's get into it. All right, so the first photo that I want to share is from somewhere pretty close to home, the Shoreland Preserves here in Utah. It's somewhere I've gone before. You may have seen my other photos from there. But early in the year in February, I felt like I hadn't gotten out to take enough pictures. I wanted to get out and take some. You can get some great leading lines there because they have these pathways all around the preserve for bird watching and other things like that. So I did a panorama with kind of the purple snow-covered mountains in the background, a pavilion in the middle, and then the leading lines of the pathways. So here's that shot. All right, my second photo is from April, and we were actually in Arkansas during the time of the eclipse, and we were going to be in the path of totality. So I was really excited, but I originally wasn't planning on even getting any pictures. But as time got closer, I watched a few videos and kind of got excited and was like, if I'm going to be there in totality, I ought to at least take the chance. But the bad news was this was like 2 days before flying out. And so I didn't have a filter to photograph the sun or anything really ready gear-wise. And I didn't even really have a great telephoto lens to zoom in very far. But I ordered a really quick, cheap, like plastic folding cardboard filter to take pictures of the eclipse. I took the longest lens I had with me, set up my camera. I took pictures of all the phases, which was really cool, and then of the eclipse itself. So here's that photo. All right. Also in April, near the end of April, I went out to Antelope Island State Park here in Utah and had just awesome conditions. It was like rainy and stormy and very moody, just gray skies, fog across Antelope Island. And I just was driving around and getting very excited. Oh, take that picture and take this picture. There are lots that I took, but two favorites that I want to share. One is I was looking up at this kind of path and rocks before me, and I thought that makes kind of a cool little mountain type peak. I wish someone was standing on top of that. That would look really cool. And so I looked around and no one was there. So I figured, hey, I have the time. I set up my tripod and my phone to remote take pictures, set it all up, got it angled and, my composition how I wanted, ran up there, posed, took this image, and I really love how it turned out. Okay, this second one is also from Antelope Island. I ended up driving around the other side of the island from where I took that previous photo and kind of came up on this small little mountain range with a lot of fog on it. And I thought, this is really cool. I liked the leading lines of the road going to the mountain. So I got out, set up my tripod there on the highway, and ended up taking this picture, which I like a lot. Okay, also in April, the day after actually, was down in a little more south near Provo, Utah. And so I went in Provo Canyon and did a lot of drone work. I flew my drone around, took pictures of the Bridal Falls waterfall that's there in the Provo Canyon. I even did a little video, which you can see. But these are two shots I really like. So this first one is just of the waterfall and kind of the canyon in the background with the, again, stormy gray clouds. Okay, this second one, I ended up flying my drone closer to the mountain and then kind of back, and you could just see this huge view of the entire Provo Canyon, and it was really pretty. I felt like this photo had a lot of depth because you could see the mountain up close in the foreground and then like the mountain range and the canyon and everything just going far back into the image. So here's that one. Okay, next in May, I ended up just doing some short local hikes to take some pictures. I wanted to do some long exposures of a waterfall and ended up finding this new waterfall really close to home that I had never been to. It was only a mile hike, super easy, quick to get to, and I had it all myself. So I took lots of pictures. I brought the dog and had a great time. But this is a long exposure that I took and I loved. It was a little scary to take it because I ended up putting my tripod in the river, pointed at the waterfall. The water was rushing, kind of shaking a little bit, but I got everything steady enough to get the image. I was reaching over to, work my camera, but I got the image. Turned out great. Love it. Here it is. Okay, in May, this is another quick hike photo. We were on a short hike with my wife and the dog and ended up walking across the bridge over a waterfall. Thought it looked pretty. Got down and took a quick long exposure, but I do like how it turned out. So here's that one. Okay, in the beginning of June, I took an image that I had been dreaming about for a long time. I had gone on this particular hike in Big Cottonwood Canyon here in Utah before, seen this amazing overlook of the canyon where you can see the mountain range on the other side in the background. And there was this cool tree that made just an awesome foreground element. But when I was there the first time, it was the middle of the day. It was bright and sunny, but I took the picture. But the more and more I looked at it and thought about it, I just kept thinking, man, what if I go back there at sunset time? Like, how different would that be? That would look awesome. And I just kept thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. So one day, finally, made the plan to go, figured out when sunset would be, more or less how long it would take me to do the hike, drove up there, hauled up the mountain, got ready, and just enjoyed some really cool light. I was lucky enough to get a little bit of cloud cover as well, so that was cool. But this is the favorite I got of that tree with that overlook when I was there at sunset time. So here's that image. I love in this image how you can see the pink from the sunset kind of just on top of that far mountain range in the back along the snow. I think it's just really cool. All right, also from that same hike, there's this really cool S-curve in the canyon. The road curves in an S right where the trailhead is at. And I've always wanted to take a cool long exposure there. So as I was coming down, I thought, should I not? I didn't know. And then I thought, well, I brought my drone and I haven't used that yet. So let's do it with the drone. So I finished my hike, took all the images, the one you just saw, got back in the car and just threw the drone up at night, waited for some cars to come by. There weren't very many cars, but I did actually get some motorcycles. So I took this image. I had to take two and stitch them together because it was just going too slow to capture the whole S-curve lit up like I wanted. But I did a long exposure of it going through that curve, and it turned out really awesome. So here's that photo. All right. Also in June, we went to see some poppy fields we had not been to before. They're called the Alpine poppy fields here in Utah, and there's just tons of them. We went around, walked through lots of, meadows of the poppies, and I just had my camera handheld, took a lot of images, but here are 3 of my favorites. Near the end of July, we went on a family camping trip. I brought my drone and we drove through the Alpine loop. And at sunset, I threw up the drone to take some pictures and got some really cool images. One was here of the canyon looking towards American Fork, Utah, with the sun setting, the clouds, the colors, and I really love just the dappled light here. I think it looks super pretty. So here's that shot of the canyon. And then here's one of the mountain range. So I was looking at the canyon, taking these images, turned, saw this mountain peak, and it looked really pretty. So I've centered it in my frame and captured that with the drone as well. Next are some photos that I absolutely loved. They were taken in August at Mirror Lake in Utah, which is a beautiful, beautiful place. I had never been before. We went to camp and I had some of the coolest photography experiences ever when we were there. We saw a bald eagle. I was up close to this deer. We had this storm and then amazing sunset. It was just everything you could have hoped for as a photographer. So I just mentioned that storm, but it had poured rain on us. We were stuck in campers all day long. And then the rain let up right before sunset. So we had these amazing conditions. And I just rushed down to the lake to take pictures. And I'm getting all set up to photograph the sunset and taking some pictures. And then right behind me, literally maybe 8 to 10 feet, this deer just walks in and starts grazing. And so I turned around and captured a couple images, but here's my favorite of that deer that was right behind me. So after capturing the photo of that deer, a bald eagle flew right over my head, had that crazy moment, like I was just in heaven, and then ended up getting some stunning images of the sunset and the reflection in the Mirror Lake. And so there are two that I really, really like. This first one was of the side. You can see a boat along the shore, and it's just very dreamy looking. I love how this turned out. So here's that first image of Mirror Lake at sunset. Okay, this second one was also at sunset, and I really wanted to highlight the reflection of this kind of small peninsula with trees on it. That was really pretty. So I got down close to the shore of the lake and took an image of the reflection of the trees with all the cool sunset clouds and colors. So here's that one. All right. In August, I was lucky enough to also go to Yellowstone for the first time. I had never been to Yellowstone National Park. I was really excited, took my camera and got loads and loads of pictures. So I'm not going to share all of them here. I'll just share my favorites. But the first is from the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. I wanted to get a picture of that waterfall. And I had looked up, like its location and things like that. I learned at sunset, the sun is setting behind it, meaning that the waterfall would be in the shade. And I was like, I don't think I want that. So it was far from where we were staying, kind of across the national park. But I figured if we got there early in the morning, instead of being in the shade, it would be lit up by the sun rising in the other direction. So that's what we did. And it actually worked out great. We drove into the park. We had these great conditions. There weren't even a ton of people there. And so this first image, I got a panoramic of the waterfall and just some of the surrounding canyon. And it turned out really great. All right, after taking the panoramic and kind of looking at the waterfall from up above, we hiked down to get close to it. And then I was so lucky. We got this amazing rainbow showing up in the waterfall, and I just took loads and loads of images. I was taking them up close, zoomed out, just capturing the amazing colors in the mist of the waterfall. So here's 3 of my favorites of that. This next one is also from Yellowstone, and it's a great example of framing where you shoot maybe through or past something to kind of frame your subject. But we were going to this geyser basin, and where you walked down to the geyser basin was kind of up on a hill, and then the pathway went down to it, and you could look through the trees and see the whole geyser basin, and it looked really cool. And so I kind of framed up my shot that way, shooting through those trees at the geyser basin. And it's a really kind of intriguing shot that makes the whole thing just look super, mysterious, compelling. So here's that shot. And of course, in Yellowstone, we saw lots of wildlife. I got a pretty good amount of shots, but I'm only going to share 2 that were really my favorites. The others I felt like were good, not great, but these 2 I really liked a lot. This first one is, I wish I could have got closer or had a longer lens, but there were a ton of deer grazing in the field. and it was at sunset time, so the lighting was really pretty, and I just took a picture of them out in the field, and this is what that looks like. This next one, my wife spotted a coyote just right next to the road walking along. So we pull over, no one was there. It was just us at the time. So I hopped out, zoomed in, and started taking pictures of it, and it was crawling around. It was, pouncing to try and hunt, and it was really cool to watch. But luckily enough, it let me get more or less close, and I took some great pictures. So here's my favorite one of that coyote. All right, in September, I wanted to get fall pictures, and we really struggled to get out and take them as often as I wanted. But we did end up going on one hike with lots of aspens where there were really pretty yellows and trees. Didn't get a ton of pictures I love, but then on the way out, as we were hiking back down to the car, the sun was setting and it was coming through the trees, creating these awesome shadows, and it looked amazing. So I climbed up on this stump, pointed my camera towards the sun, and photographed this shot. All right, these last photos that I want to share from the year are all from southern Utah. We went down there and ended up seeing some really cool things. The first thing, we went into Snow Canyon State Park, which has a lot of really pretty red rock. We only did one really short hike there called the Petrified Dunes, and just like the name says, it's a bunch of petrified rock, and you can walk all around it and climb around it. It's super fun. But we were there as the sun was getting close to sunset, lower in the sky, and I got some really pretty pictures that I just love. The colors of the green contrasting against kind of the orange rock, and it looks super awesome. So here's the first one from there. The second photo that I want to share from Snow Canyon is maybe my favorite photo of the year. I had the sun setting behind a tree, so the tree is the center of the frame. It's casting this shadow, creating these leading lines to the tree, and it just looks epic with the rock around it, the tree kind of backlit and illuminated, the leading lines, and I love this photo. I think it's just super sharp, super pretty. So here's my second one from Snow Canyon. This third one from Snow Canyon is a bracketed shot. So I took 3 images to expose for the shadows, highlights, and just a normal exposure. And I wanted to just get some more of the detail in the clouds, as well as not lose that detail in the rock. But I love just the textures of the rock here, the sky, and everything kind of seems like it's pulling you into the sun in this picture. So here's that one. All right, my last photo from Snow Canyon is a panorama. It has the tree you saw in my very first Snow Canyon photo, but I figured it was so pretty. The rock was so awesome to look at. The lighting was great that I wanted to capture kind of the whole scene. So I set up my tripod, took a few shots to the left, took a few in the center and right, and then stitched it together to create this panorama. Okay, and the last shots I want to share from 2024 are from Zion National Park. It was so pretty. It was kind of some tough conditions, really cold, windy in certain areas, and so we weren't there long, but walked around and saw a lot of pretty things. But these ones I took just walking back towards the visitor center, basically, from further into the canyon. But the river is super pretty there. And I took some images where I have this log laying in the river, kind of guiding your eye down the river towards this mountain peak in the background. You've got this tree framing the mountain peak. It all just kind of came together really well. So there's one vertical and one horizontal. So here's those shots. All right, those are my best photos of 2024. Hopefully you liked them. Comment what your favorite was and let me know what else you'd like to see. Thanks for watching.